Hello everyone and welcome back. I hope you guys are all having a great week. In today's video, I'm going to show you guys how I made these ocean themed coral jewelry pieces. Now, I love making clay corals because they are all about different colors and textures, and I have got a lot of different design elements here, and I will give you guys a closer look at these. Again, very colorful and lots of different texture elements here. Now, I love the ocean, so I would wear these on the daily in the summertime, but they would also make great costume or mermaid core jewelry pieces. And you can pair these with flatback stones, beads, or shells for some really unique design ideas. And all of these embellishments are really easy to make, and they're a lot of fun to put together as well. And you can make these in any shape or size and any color that you want. So let's get started. For today's tutorial, I am just using Sculpey III oven bake clay. So I've got this nice sandy color that I will be using for my base. And then I will be using several different colors for my corals, and you can use whatever colors you want. For tools, I've got this double-ended dotting tool, and I will be using both sides of it. I've got a diamond cutter for my pendant, my straight pen for additional texture, and this small round cutter I will just be using to punch out the hole for my jump ring. And then I've got this flat-backed blue gemstone here that I will be using as a centerpiece on this. So I've got my diamond cutter here, and I have rolled this sandy color into a nice sheet for my pendant, and I am just going to go ahead and cut this out. And now that this piece is cut out, I am going to take that blue flatback stone, and I'm just going to place that right in the center here. And then I am going to add some sandy texture around all of the edges of this piece. Now, this is something that can be done after the piece is finished, but it's much easier to get that out of the way now so that you're not smashing those embellishments trying to do it when it's done. So I'm just going to take my straight pen, and I am just going to do some very gentle dotting all the way around all the edges of this piece. So you're just doing gentle little pokes, and this is going to give us a nice sandy texture. Here it is, and again, I just followed that all the way around those edges, and now we can start with our corals. So I have got this sandy color and then this other lighter brown, and I am just going to make these bases for my coral. So for the first piece, I am going to elongate it and kind of point the one side a little bit and then curve it like a tooth here. And then that's going to wrap right around this stone. And I am kind of placing it a little bit over the stone so that when it's finished, it'll help to kind of hold that piece in there. And for the next one, I'm using the same color, and this one I'm going to roll nice and round and then just flatten it out a little bit. And I'm going to put that one up here so they're not sitting right next to each other. Again, placing it overlapping the stone just a little bit. And then this lighter brown, I am thinking that maybe these are a little big. I'm going to go ahead and peel these pieces off, and I'm going to do them the same way. I'm just going to make them a little bit smaller. And now I can take my lighter brown, and this is just another kind of coral, so I am going to just place it somewhere that looks natural. And it's best to place all of your larger corals first and then use your smaller ones as fillers after these ones are finished. And I think this one looks good right here. So now we can begin adding some texture to these. So I have got my red and yellow clays, and I have just rolled these into several different sized balls, and I am going to begin placing them on these lighter sandy colored pieces. So I'm going to do the yellow on this side, and I am just placing these on here. You're going to place them on and then press them in gently with your finger, making sure that you're pushing them together so that they're all touching, and using lots of different sizes. And I like to start mine in the center and then work out from there, but you can start on the edges if you want to. So I am just going to cover this whole piece in yellow, and then I'm going to cover this other piece in red. This is what they look like, and I did leave some of that base showing through on the inside and outside edges, and that is totally fine. And now I'm going to use this smaller end of my dotting tool, and I am just going to begin very gently pressing in the center of each one of these little dots. So just gently pressing them in, and they will begin to look like tiny little suction cups. This is what it looks like, and for this little brown coral, we are going to be using basically the same method. So I've got that smaller end of my dotting tool, and I am just going to begin pushing this clay in. So I am just starting with some smaller little dots on the edges, and as you work your way into the center, you can kind of move that in tiny circular motions to widen them out and make some of them a bit larger, and push them into each other so that they're not perfectly round. This is what it looks like, and now I'm going to add some texture to the red coral as well. So I am just using my straight pen and pressing little tiny dots into the center of each one of these. So the same method that we used on the yellow one, except the holes are much smaller, and that's going to give us a different texture effect. Here is the red coral, and now I am going to add some tube coral in this empty space there on the side. So I have got this kind of pale orange, and I am just going to be making an elongated teardrop shape. So you want a nice rounded end on it, but you want enough length on the bottom that you can hold it in your fingers. And I'm going to do two. I'm going to do a larger one and a smaller one. And now I'm just going to take my dotting tool, and I am going to use the larger end of it and start with the larger coral here. And just like we did with those yellow corals, you're just going to push in the centers of these so that we have a nice round hole here on the top. And I'm going to flip this over and use the smaller end for this smaller piece here. And once you've got those holes in the tops of them, you can go ahead and roll off some of this excess to get them to a much shorter length to fit in whatever space you are going to put them in. And then we can put them together and begin placing them on the piece. And when you put these together, you want to stack them, kind of stagger them and fit them together so that that smaller one is sticking out just below it so that they're both visible. And once you've got those pieces placed where you want them, you can go ahead and straighten out those holes with your dotting tool and kind of open them up and use that tool to adhere them better from the inside. So you can kind of poke your tool in there and then press from the inside so that you're not ruining the piece as you're doing it. And now that I've got those pieces placed, I am just using that larger ball end of the dotting tool to make some very subtle surface texture on these as well. And now that these are finished, we can start with some of our filler corals. So I have got this dark blue color, and I am going to start by rolling this into a nice skinny rope. And then I'm going to take this round dotting tool and use it to roll this out nice and flat. And then peel it up. And I'm not sure what kind of coral this is, but you're just going to make a nice squiggly. So fold the tip of it in and then pinch it down here on the bottom, keeping them spaced on the top. And you're just going to begin folding this, keeping those edges nice and round, and again, just pinching them together on the bottom only. And when you get the length that you want, you can just trim off that excess. And the same thing with the front, you're just gonna fold that in, and I like to kind of push the top of it down so that you can't see the edge there. And now I'm gonna try to get a hold of this with my dotting tool, and I might be better off going through the top. So I'm just gonna pick this up and place it right here underneath this tube coral and right up against that little brown one. And you wanna do this very gently so that you're not messing it up. Just like that. And I am gonna place another one on the other side of that piece of brown coral. And for our next filler coral, I've got this light kind of sparkly green, and I am just going to make this into a teardrop shape, and then using the ball end of my straight pin, again, I am just going to press out the top of this, just like we did with the tube coral, and you're going to want to roll that around on there so that you have a nice deep hole. And once you've done that, you can take your straight pin, and I am just going to be marking some lines from the center outwards, just like the underside of a mushroom cap if you've ever made mushrooms before. This is what it looks like. And once you've got that done, you can just skin this down with your fingers, just roll it around until it's nice and skinny. And then you can just pinch that off and then stick your straight pin in there on the bottom and pick that piece up. And I am going to place this right here on top of this yellow coral. So I'm just going to set it on there, and then you can use the ball end of your straight pin again. I messed it up. I want it right up against that stone. And then with the ball end of my straight pin, I'll push it in there, and that will kind of pull those edges outwards and make it look much more natural. If I can get it to stop sticking to everything but the clay, there we go. And once you've got that placed, you can go ahead and fix up the edges and your detail on the inside if you need to. And I am going to add a few more of these around this yellow coral. Here they are, and I'm really happy with the way that these are placed, and I think that sparkly green complements that center stone very well. Now, before we move on, I am going to go ahead and punch out my hole for my jump ring, and I am just placing that right here in the center at the top of this point. And now I'm going to be adding some seaweed to this empty space here on the top. So I've got this bright green color, and I am just going to roll this out. You're going to want to roll it out pretty skinny depending on what size your piece is. And now I'm going to take my straight pin and I am just going to cut off a little length of this. And then I like to kind of scrunch these down in my fingers and get those folds on there before I place them so that you're not messing them up trying to move them around afterwards. And I'm just picking this up by the bottom, and then I'm going to place it where I want it and kind of tuck that end into the center there. And I am going to go ahead and just do several of these over all of this empty space on the top of my piece here. So here it is with all of the seaweed on it, and as a final filler, I have got this orange clay, and again, I am just rolling this into some small balls. And now I'm going to just begin placing these kind of randomly around the piece, filling in any spaces that I feel like look blank. And I am also going to put them on the bases of some of those seaweeds where the ends are showing and use them to cover up any other flaws that I find as I'm going through it. And after you've got those pieces placed, you can take that dotting tool on the larger end again and just press in those centers and then move that tool in a kind of circular motion to thin them out. So you have some nice round pieces and skinny edges on those. And I do still have a few more that I'm going to add up here on the top. Here it is, and you can see that I have got some nicks there on the top by my seaweed in that sandy area. So I've got my straight pin here, and as a final step, I am just going to go ahead and do some more of that same dotting technique that we did around the edges. And I'm going to fill in all of this empty space on the top and also the little empty spaces around the edges so that we have edge to edge texture on this. Here it is, and again, there are so many different design elements that you can use for these. So if you compare this to the other pieces that I made, it is a little bit larger and more clustered, and the reason for that is that I really wanted to include as many of those elements as I could for this tutorial. Now you will notice several different pieces here that I did not use today, but if you visit my channel and check out my clay shorts, you will find brief tutorials for all of these pieces, including the jellyfish and the stingray. So please refer to those videos for further inspiration. This piece is now finished, and I am going to cook it at 275 for 20 to 30 minutes. Here is the finished piece, and again, lots of vibrant colors and fun textures. That is it for today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below, and visit my channel and check out some of my other clay tutorials. Next week, I will be making one of these beautiful crochet cell phone sleeves, so tune in for that. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time.